Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the next session on Business Case Study, a self-study guide. I'm Yalman Ansari, and before we start today's session, we'll do a real quick recap on our last session, in which we discussed about case study and its importance, the rules of the game that you have to keep in your mind when attempting a case study, and what to expect in classroom session for that, how you actually prepare for case studies. In today's session, we are going to talk about how we actually look at the expectations of teacher and how we can actually adapt ourselves, prepare ourselves to act accordingly. For that, we have to understand how the teacher assesses us, assesses the students. By knowing how that assessment takes place, students would be able to understand the key points that they need to focus on to better prepare themselves for case study preparation before they come to class. And today's session is going to cover this aspect of how to better prepare for case study. In our next slide, you can see a grid, a 2x2 quadrant that has this caption on it: how does the teacher assess you for grading? I deliberately use this heading to actually underscore the importance, to highlight the importance of case study preparation. It's not just about reading a case. Reading a case is just the first step. It's more about putting yourself in the shoes of those actors, those protagonists जिनका नाम इस्तेमाल किया गया है, जिनकी आइडेंटिटी को छुपा कर किसी और आइडेंटिटी में, बट द रोल्स आर रियल, नाम हो सकता है चेंज कर दिए गए हों. You have to find yourself in their shoes. You have to actually feel yourself in that environment where you could actually understand things not exactly absolutely the way they actually did, but close to reality. यही case study का मकसद होता है. That putting yourself in that context, how you actually now read the details given in the case study and how you actually feel the real urgency of the issue presented in the case study. ये चीज़ students को चाहिए realize करें. And if you can do that, then it will really help you with your case study preparation, your analysis, the strategies that you identify, that you apply, and your recommendation. उसके लिए पहले एक mindset का होना बहुत ज़रूरी है. So if I say case study क्या art है या science है, regardless of this discussion, it's a mindset. तो इसके लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है that you feel yourself in that situation that is given in a case study. So when you come up with this feeling, with this mindset, then it would be very easy for you to understand what are the things that you need to focus on more, because your teacher assesses you or is going to assess you on those aspects. So in this slide we are going to cover those aspects. I have actually left this slide purposely blank for you to first understand what's this all about, because I'm sure if not many of you, some of you would still be thinking about, because that might be their first interaction. They've never seen this thing before, because our audience is quite large and we have people coming from all different walks of life with different backgrounds, with different prior education and all. So in business case studies, when we talk about preparation for business case studies and management tools, strategies, all that, we don't really have anything else to rely on but the brain, the knowledge work. That's why business graduates are called the knowledge workers. And the tool that we use, most of the time, it is just like this, the one that you are looking at on the screen. It's just like a plain simple 2x2 quadrant. And how it actually helps business students, this we are going to explain, and then we'll see its relevance to case study methodology. But before that, how your teacher is going to use this case study preparation assessment is very important. The facts that a teacher looks into are going to be explained through this slide. And for that, if you allow me to write, then we'll walk through together. All right? This 2x2 quadrant is also known as a grid, जिसमें आप एक बड़ा स्क्वायर देख रहे हैं. अगर आपको एक छोटा सा डॉट on the screen, this is the boundary of this square, and within this square you could see 4 sub-squares. ठीक है? Right. For those of you who are new to this line जो आप देख रहे हैं, ये यहाँ तक जो जा रही है, it's called a horizontal line, जिसको आप x-axis भी कह सकते हैं. Whereas this line going up is going upwards over here. This line is called a vertical line, also known as y-axis. और उसके अलावा you can see this line which is intersecting the other line on this point. You can all see that, right? So this is the center of gravity, आप इसको कह सकते हैं. So it goes all the way to the other side here. Likewise, this line starting from here goes upward, intersecting at this point and going all the way up here. Now, you might be thinking, what's the significance of these two lines? If you recall, I just said this is your x-axis. When you talk about x-axis, it starts from 0 value and goes to the maximum value to this end. So now you can say, in the mid over here lies the midpoint or the middle value. Likewise, along y-axis, from minimum value to the highest value, in between lie the middle value. तो क्या हम इसको ऐसे लिख सकते हैं? From here all the way up to here, the values lying over here are roughly called the lower values or the low values. हम इसको लिख सकते हैं क्या? अगर मैं यहाँ पे लिखूं लो, और यहाँ पे जो values हैं close to this region, can I call them the middle values? and the values that are here, right? Can I call them the highest values or higher values, or just simple high? ठीक है जी. Likewise, यहाँ पे if we consider the y-axis, these values would be roughly called the low values. Here the values would be the middle values or the mid values, and here the values would be the high values, right? Or this point can be called the point of origin, or we can say it's a zero starting point. Now, how does a teacher assess you for grading? As we discussed earlier, case study is about the practical application. Those concepts that you get to study in your book for any particular course, you get to apply those concepts in a real life setting, in a real life actual situations which are presented to you in case studies. Case studies sort of bridge a gap between your book and the practical application. Yes, you've got it right. Your teacher actually assesses you on the basis of how good you are at the application of those concepts that you learn in class, and how actually you are good at applying those concepts to different challenges, situations, issues given in different case studies throughout your course in that particular semester. So there are two things relying on which your teacher assesses your performance. One is in-class learning, and the other thing is the application of concepts learned in class, जिसको हम कह सकते हैं in-class participation. And let's assume we take the element of class participation on the x-axis. Let me write here. And on y-axis, we take in-class learning. These two dimensions tell you the expectation of your teacher from you. And these quadrants we get to make a lot for case study preparation. And your teacher gets to make this for his or her own personal assessment in terms of how he or she is going to initiate discussion in class, so that that discussion gives you an ample बेताशा किस्म की आपको opportunity दे in class learning की and in class participation की, and that would help the teacher assess you in terms of your involvement in case studies. So if you look here, if your in-class learning is lying somewhere here between low and the midpoint, somewhere here, and your class participation is lying between low point and the midpoint here, then you will fall in this quadrant. Anyone who is lying in this quadrant won't be feeling happy, because this quadrant tells you that your participation is weak, because your learning is weak. So anyone who is falling in this quadrant would get not a good grade, but probably a bad grade. अगर हम यहाँ पे लिख देते हैं कि that person is falling here to get a D grade. Versus that person, अगर आप देखें upper right corner, now I hope you all see that here. This is the quadrant that tells you that your class participation is high, as well as your in-class learning is high. Why? Because this quadrant lies, if you look at the x-axis, it is towards the high side, right? Here. And more than the mid side, right? Whereas this quadrant is lying on the lower side, on both axes. Here the x-axis and here the y-axis. And this quadrant is lying on the higher side, on both axes. If you look across here, follow the dot, it's here, right? And if you follow the dot here going down, it's here. So anyone falling in this quadrant is exhibiting, is showing high learning and high class participation. So if you follow this dot and you go all the way across to the y-axis, then you would come to know anyone falling in this quadrant is lying on the higher side along y-axis. Meaning what? Meaning that he or she is showing high in-class learning, aptitude, involvement, as well as gaining of knowledge. And if you follow the dot going towards the x-axis, so here you conclude that anyone falling in this quadrant is falling on the higher side along the x-axis, which measures your in-class participation. So obviously anyone who is falling in this quadrant, simply put, is showing high class learning and high class participation. And this is what your teacher expects from you. So you will definitely get an A grade. Similarly, if we consider this quadrant, anyone who is falling in this quadrant is showing what? He or she is showing low in-class learning, right? But high in-class participation. Okay, that student is showing little involvement in in-class learning, but the class participation is quite higher, meaning he might or she might be participating in class, in taking part in the exercises that teacher initiates, or the questions that the teacher encourages students to ask, or to come up with their observation or remarks or comments. But those participation show less involvement with class learning. They don't show the subject matter that has been taught in class much in depth. So participation wise, these students are okay, but they are not able to show the conceptual understanding through their class participation. So a student lying in this quadrant is exhibiting two characteristics. One is low class learning, and the second is high class participation. Is it possible? Yes. In some cases it happens that students are less involved in class learning activities, but they actively participate in other activities which happen in class during the case discussion session, like questioning, like presentation, like involving in a discussion session, like role playing, and so on. So it depends on teacher preference if you are lying in this quadrant, because some teachers really appreciate students in class participation despite low learning, because they think through this participation students would be encouraged to apply those class learnings slowly and gradually on a higher level. Yet there are other teachers who have a preference to actually assess students on the basis of their in-class learning more rather than their class participation. So it depends. In my case, I would say most of the students participate actively in class, while learning low tend to learn higher gradually with the passage of time. So I would consider those students learning to apply more concepts. So I would consider them for a C grade. Obviously, their learning is little low and their participation is little more, but learning is more important. If you don't learn, then how are you going to apply those concepts? If you look at this quadrant on the upper left corner, here any student who's falling here is high on in-class learning but low on in-class participation. So obviously a candidate for a B grade, because at least this student is learning the concepts, and all it needs is a little bit encouragement, motivation to participate in class. That's how your teacher assesses you and assigns grades. So what does it mean to you? And how is it more important for you? If you look at the spread of these grades, it goes like this: from D to C, and from C to B, and from B to A. You can assess yourself also on your own. If you are less class participative and less learner in terms of learning in class, then you can see where you lie, either here or here. And then you can chart out a path for yourself to see if you want to get an A grade. And these are the expectations that you have to meet of your teacher. So this quadrant's understanding is very important, because we'll use this quadrant for many other tools as well. And if you have already understood this concept of in-class participation and in-class learning or this quadrant, then I think you have understood how this quadrant actually works, which is also good for later application and understanding of the concepts that we come to deal with. Now, how do we approach cases? How do we analyze cases? How do we see big picture, then small picture? And how do we see small picture and big picture? These are the questions that we get to deal with when it comes to dealing with case analysis. Earlier we have talked about the acronym of case. where C stands for critical incident, A stands for analysis, S stands for solution, and E stands for explanation. So now we are discussing the second part, which is analysis. A stands for analysis. Under that, the analysis portion involves looking at the problem, looking at the critical incident, looking at the issue or a challenge, looking at the problem at hand. But how? That's the question. And this is the most intricate part of analyzing business cases. As much complex as it gets, there is hardly any one clear way of analyzing a case, as said earlier. But there are certain key points that you have to keep in your mind. First, read the case in depth, meaning you must know what the case author is trying to say, is trying to portray, what he is or she is trying to convey, and what's the feel of the expression conveyed through the text, the main body, the words used in the case. Then you must note down all important occurrences, events on a piece of paper. While you are doing so, you must also keep in your mind that you must follow a specific timeline, which means the sequence of those events recorded on the piece of paper must be in an order of time, must be properly sequenced. This is really important. Yes, you can think of yourself as an investigator, as a detective who is trying to investigate a crime and recording all incidents that occurred and gathering all pieces of information at one place. That is what you are pretty much doing. And this is quite similar to actually when you apply the concepts learned in the class setting, learned in the book, and when you apply those concepts to a particular situation given in the case form. So I cannot overemphasize on reading between the lines. By doing so, you actually infer the real hidden meaning, and for that you must have a good dictionary besides you. You must have a good understanding of different phrases used in that case study, and never shy away from consulting dictionary or doing online searches to actually find out more information. Sometimes it is good that students search the internet, they search related market information, competitors information on the internet to develop a sound background information about that particular company, its products, its rivals, its competitors in the market. That helps. Some of the times it also helps if you don't know the company and its background, its history, its products. It's better if it's unknown to you that you go to the internet and go onto the internet, and then over there you actually visit their websites and see their different activities, how they operate, what kind of products they have, in which regions of the world they have presence, and so on. Also read about the bios of their top management. This is really important. And after that, when you start analyzing the case, you have already written down all the important points. You have sort of created a synopsis of the case. Then you picture yourself. Where do you stand? Obviously, you stand in the place of the person who is the main person focused on the case, or one of the individuals who are around whom this case revolves. So if you consider yourself in that position, then you actually have the look and feel of the situations, circumstances discussed, given in a case. After having done that, now you are slowly and gradually immersing yourself. Yes, you are now immersing yourself in the water, slowly and gradually. And this is what a good case analyst has got to be. Because now you are actually feeling the tides that are coming over to you, the waves that are coming over to you. And now you are developing that frame of mind, that mindset, which is actually needed for a proper analysis of a case. Yes, you can say if you don't have that proper mindset established earlier, then you won't be able to analyze that case properly or in realistic terms. It's exactly the same phrase like seeing is believing and seeing is doing. When you see something, you actually believe that thing. When you see something, then you actually do that thing. So you have to have that special mindset in place, right? So now after this, what you have to do now is look at the issue discussed and try to understand the complexities involved in that issue. And then from that issue, look around and see who are the affectees, what are the influences around this issue, what are the causes around this issue. There are certain ostensible causes which are not the real causes, but seemingly they may seem to be. And there are some real causes, but they are hidden causes which are not easily identifiable. So by assessing the external environment around those causes or issues, you are taking into account all those possible external influences. And don't forget to write them in points so that you understand the overall situation, complexity of that situation, intricacy of that situation, that how different elements are impacting each other and how they are interrelated with each other. And then you go further out and see around what other factors are out there that are directly related to the problem at hand and indirectly related to a problem at hand. By that I mean problem in the case study. It is very important because several case studies include lots of information and some of them might be irrelevant. And their presence is just to give you an understanding of the prevailing situation. But they might not have a direct bearing on the outcomes of that case. So by looking into that information, you can easily decide which one to choose and which one not to. Now, This process is called looking at a small picture and then looking at a bigger picture. And this process is also called doing case analysis by inductive method. Inductive method, where you first look at the issue, the small picture, the specific issue, the small picture, and then you go outwards like this and expand it like this to see the bigger picture. This method is called inductive method. There is another way of looking at things, and this way includes looking at a bigger picture and then looking at a smaller picture. It is the opposite of induction method, and this method is called deductive method, where you actually deduce something by deducting something, by inferring something, by realizing something. And this latter method is much commonly used in our classes these days. And students are exposed to case study analysis through deductive method, which involves first look at the environment, the bigger picture, the external forces, or the externalities, and then slowly and gradually narrowing it down to the main issue that is presented in the case to you. Whereas the inductive method is looking at the problem first and then looking at the broader picture later, thereby establishing a connection between the problem and the environment. Now, it's your call, it's your choice, which method you want to choose. It depends on your preference, your comfort, your likeness. If you ask me which one is easier, I would say the second method is easier, which is looking at the bigger picture first and then looking at the specific issue later. Why is that? It is because students are taught concepts in class which are later expected to be applied to those issues, problems, challenges presented in cases. So it's much easier for students to actually relate to that external environment through the tools taught to them in class. For example, Porter 5 forces model. Because it is very easy for anyone to look at the overall market forces, look at the product alternatives, look at the buyer or the seller bargaining powers, look at the threat of competition, look at the bargaining power of suppliers, and so on. Or by applying Pastelli model, which is basically about your external forces that relate to political, economical, social, technological, environmental, legal, and ethical issues. It's very easy to do that because students should start with something that they are quite comfortable at, that they feel things which are taught to them in class in direct relation to the concepts given, and the issues discussed in the cases, rather than starting from the problem first and then expanding it out to analyze the other factors. But slowly and gradually you will develop the knack for it. You will develop the mastery over solving cases. And then a time would come, sooner or later, depending on how much interest you have for analyzing cases, that you would be quite comfortable doing problem analysis first and then looking at the bigger picture, which is the external environment and so on, the external analysis. So it's your call which one you want to choose. You want to go with the inductive method or deductive method. So that's the starting point. By doing so, if we go with the deductive method, that you have first analyzed the environment, you have analyzed the market, you have analyzed the competitors, you have analyzed the government regulations, all you have done by applying the tele model, which I've just explained to you, or by applying the Porter's 5 forces model, which I've just explained to you. So if you collect all the pieces of information and put them on those models, then you would be able to do the external analysis quite easily. So basically, what a student should do actually when it comes to case analysis, there are mainly two ways of approaching a case, either by looking at a smaller picture first and then bigger picture later, or it's vice versa, which is first looking at its bigger picture and then a smaller picture. As I've mentioned earlier, cases are built around a particular incident or a situation or a challenge. So you might be directly asked to come up with your suggestion regarding a particular problem that is given to you in a form of a question, जो कि केस में पूछा जाता है towards the end, and sometimes teacher hands out those questions. Then in that situation, you know what to do, what is being asked. उस situation में आप प्रॉब्लम को फर्स्ट एनालाइज करेंगे या बिगर पिक्चर जो एक्सटर्नल फोर्सेस हैं, एक्सटर्नल एनवायरनमेंट है, जो एक्सटर्नैलिटीज़ हैं, जो उसके इर्द गिर्द जो उसकी सिचुएशन को डिफाइन कर रहा है, उसको पहले देखेंगे. It is just like that when a patient comes to you with a disease. So you are a doctor. You look at a patient for his or her disease, or you first consider the environment where he or she is living, because that environment might be the real cause for the illness. So it goes both ways, and the choice is yours. You start with the environment first, then disease, or you start with the disease first and then environment. So with that, we conclude our second session on case study understanding, case study guideline, and in this session we have talked about the student-teacher expectations and how they are met, and for that how you can better prepare yourself. We understood the concept of quadrant 2x2 grid, which is quite often used in management studies, business-related courses, and you should all be familiar with that. And then we talked about what are different approaches out there to use when analyzing a case. Alright, so now we move on to the next slide. The next slide that you see on the screen is worksheet number 1. It has 3 columns. One is explaining knowledge, the second one experience, and the third one creativity. Why have I chosen this slide for you? Because this would encapsulate, summarize all the past discussion that we have had so far regarding case study and the purpose of case study. That how you utilize your knowledge in light of your experience to come up with a creative solution. And here is the graphical way of showing you that. Follow with me. Now let me draw here something that you would notice. Let me put first 5 dots here to represent your knowledge, and then comes your experience. Again, the same 5 dots here. The difference between knowledge and experience is that the knowledge you have, you know, in light of your experience, how to put it to a good use, how to put it to work. So here you gaining the advantage of your knowledge in light of your experience, you make it in a more usable form. By connecting all these dots together to make it something recognizable, right? Whereas under creativity, we use not only your knowledge but also experience to come up with something that is remarkable for your organization. By connecting the dots in a different way and form to create something remarkable for your organization. So here we go. If you can recognize what I'm trying to draw here, it's a star, right? So this is the entire purpose of a case study, that you use your knowledge, the concepts learned in class, and that in light of the experience that you have had so far, if you're coming from different work background, professional knowledge, your experience in different organizations, in decision making, in problem solving, in analytics, the application of those tools to interpret different results, and then through the use of your creativity, you come up with a cutting-edge solution. And this is the entire purpose of case study, to sharpen your knowledge, to make you a brighter candidate for organizational challenges. And this is what we're going to do today. Now let me move on to the next slide. This is worksheet number 2. This is the worksheet that you would use to record, to capture all the relevant information regarding the case presented to you. Your teacher will assess you based on the information provided in the case study, in the guidance that is given to you, and the appendices which may form a part of a case study containing additional information. So you might want to record and go through all those key points before you come to class, before you actually prepare for case discussion face-to-face. So we will use this sheet for collecting all that information. Now, let's talk about a case. How does it look? And what are the important aspects of a case? So here I'm bringing to you a very simple case called a caselet. Let's talk about it. Alright, so now we are here on a case that is titled Micronet Broadband, a chance to win a customer. This case has been prepared by me and with the help of some of my students, namely I have to mention their cooperation coming from Aisha, Fatma, Maria and Sumaya. This case was prepared under the guidance and direction of Dr. Kasir Abbas, Department Head of our Department of Management Sciences, and he gave me this opportunity to actually write a case on that. Now, let's talk about it. There is a dilemma given. There is a problem that is given that you have to solve. And what is that problem? Let's talk about it. Micronet is an organization that provides DSL services home to home, that is the internet services. And this case study actually talks about a customer related challenge that the company is facing and how the company is about to solve that issue, and it seeks your help in the form of a case study. So what's the issue? Let's talk about it. Here is the dilemma. Our dilemma kya hai? The meeting was just over and Mohsin Hamid was on his way back to his customer relationship department thinking over the points of the meeting. Customers have always been a backbone of any business, and that was why the meeting was convened of all the area and location managers at the company's head office to analyze customers' retention rate. Mohsin handles all queries and complaints regarding service-related issues at the head office and remains constantly in touch with all the managers within his assigned region. So here we talk about a meeting that just concluded, and Mohsin Hamid is back on his way to his office, to his cube, to actually talk about what are the points that discussed in the meeting with his colleagues. As he goes straight to his desk to start his work, a printed email was already placed on his desk which read as follows. Dear Mr. Mohsin Hamid, in following up on our last conversation regarding the warranty issues of UPS, I am still wondering what has been discussed regarding this matter. So there is this email from a concerned customer that is sitting on his desk. If I recall, in our last conversation, you mentioned that the matter was still under consideration, that you would get back on it. However, the following email has just been received yesterday by us from you, unless it's an automatically generated email. So what happened after that discussion was over with the customer, an email was received by the customer. The following email just announces the decision without even referring to customers' genuine concerns. These concerns are once again mentioned below. और वो क्या है concerns customer के? वो ये है, number one, upon installation, there was no warranty card of the UPS given to us last November 2013. Micronet Broadband provides you router. Along with that, a UPS to avoid fluctuation in the power so that you can have the internet without any disruption. That's why they're talking about the installation of the UPS. And the customer's concern is that there was no warranty card given upon its installation. Second point, due to power fluctuations from the regional grid station, the transformer got burnt in March and the whole unit was replaced by Neatel because the warranty period of 1 year covered it. What happened? In the month of March, because of power fluctuation, the UPS got burnt and it was all replaced by Neatel without any extra charge. Point number 3, again the same incident happened now in October 2014. Almost after 6 to 7 months, and then just 2 months before the warranty period expired, but now we have been told that we have to pay half of the price, which is quite opposite to company's earlier policy. Now this time the company is charging half of the price to the customer for replacing its UPS. Now that's the genuine concern. My question is, can the company change its warranty policy on its existing units without informing its customers in advance? As this is the second time in less than a year that this UPS burned because of power supply fluctuation and had to be replaced, over which customers have no control. It seems that this incident could repeat itself and UPS are not that reliable. So that's the customer's genuine concern, that if this incident keeps happening over and over again, then what's the use of having that service, because each time you have to pay half of the price of replacement, which is 3,500, that would exceed the overall cost of the internet usage, right? So I would urge you to address our genuine grievance and ask the customer support department to find a win-win settlement of this matter. Otherwise, incident of UPS burning make the service cost quite exorbitantly expensive, and this seems an extortion of customers as each incident costs rupees 3,500 minimum. Thank you. A concerned customer. Now this case study ends with a question that you as a student have to find a solution to. Okay? So the question is, a concerned customer is facing genuine grievance, and you have to address that genuine grievance by looking into this matter, which has been given to you in a form of a question, taking into account competition in the market. How would you handle this issue in a win-win way if you were in the shoes of Mr. Mohsin Hamid? So now, looking at the current competition, there are of course your rivals, your competitors already operating in this DSL internet services market. How would you handle this grievance matter to satisfy your customer in such a way that your customer is also satisfied and there is no damage to your organization as well? That is what we call win-win situation, that both are happy, both are satisfied. So how can you go about it? What kind of solution can you suggest? And now this is a real life challenge. This is a real life corporate problem. And now you have to assume the role of Mr. Mohsin Hamid. Like we have talked about it earlier on, that you have to play the role of protagonist. Obviously, of course, I have changed the name of the real character in this case study so that the focus remains on the issue, not the person himself. So now we talk about this issue, that how can you come up with a possible solution that is agreeable to both parties, that is your customer as well as your company. So how can we go about it? Let's talk about it. Now, the first thing you have to do is you must read the case once again, as many times as you feel completely satisfied that you have grasped all the information given in the case. Now I would go through each line and see if there's anything that needs to be highlighted. So here I'll go. The meeting was just over and Mohsin Hamid was on his way back. So here they are talking about a meeting, right? So I would highlight meeting. And then I would talk about Mohsin Hamid on his way back to his customer relationship department. So it means that Mohsin Hamid belongs to a customer relationship department, obviously. So I will highlight this as well. And then thinking over the points of the meeting, customers have always been a backbone of any business, and that was why the meeting was convened of all the area. Now here I'm going to talk about the importance of the customer. So here we go. Likewise, that way you can go on and keep highlighting important issues, information giving in your case. Once you are done with all that, then what you're going to do is you will scroll down and see the question, read it once again. Taking into account competition in the market. So what do you have to take into account? Competition. And then how would you handle this issue in a win-win way? Now your challenge is to come up with such a solution that is acceptable by both parties, that your manager, your company, as well as the customer. If you were in the shoes of Mr. Mohsin Hamid, so now you have to play the role of Mr. Mohsin Hamid to actually come up with that solution that would be acceptable by both parties, that your company and yourself. So with this, now we move back to the worksheet number 2. Now here we are back on worksheet number 2. Now this is the quadrant. Here you will write all the information pertaining to your competitors. And here you are going to write all the information that pertains to your market segment, the customer that you are targeting, the types of customer that you are targeting. So here you are going to write information that is relevant to your competitors, and here you are going to write information that is related to your target market. And I hope you know what target market means, the kind of customers, the kind of market, the kind of household, the kind of people that who are our customers. So we are going to write information about that, about what kind of customers they are, what kind of background they come from, and what kind of their monthly income or earnings, things like that, that you want to come up with a customer related profile. Third, here we're going to talk about how well we can come up with a win-win solution. For that, you first need to identify the problem by writing the issues mentioned in that problem. There was a warranty issue, there was a UPS burning issue, and there was charging customers excessive amount issue, right? And one more issue, that the warranty card was not given to the customer. So those would come under problem. And here would come your positive conclusions when you talk about finding a win-win solution. We talk about different alternatives. So you're going to list down all those alternatives here, another aspect of your solution that you want to come up with, that you want to compare, and then you would come up with which one to go with. So that's how you are going to collect all the information and all the data given in your case. So worksheet number 2 talks about the competitors' information, the target market information, the problem at hand, and the alternative solution that you want to suggest. Now here we are on the next slide, which gives you a link to an online resource on case study analysis tools. And let me show you that tool to you. Now here we are on the website that gives you case study tools which you can use at your convenience to solve different cases given to you. And the beauty of this online resource is that it gives you all relevant, all related business case study tools with explanation and how to actually implement them in terms of analyzing different issues, challenges, and coming up with different solutions to different problems. So it not only gives you the understanding of those tools, but also it helps you in implementing those, how you actually apply these tools to different concepts, situations, challenges given. So let me scroll down a little bit here. As you can see, it has different material banks under each link: business process change, corporate parenting, e-business, emergent strategies, marketing, and managing strategic change. And you can explore each tab further to get more insights. Business strategy, shareholder analysis, strategic analysis, strategic choice, strategy into action. So these are some of the tools that we get to use from time to time. And if you look here, most important, if you look here under strategic analysis, the critical success factors and core competencies, pestle analysis, Porter's diamond model, Porter's 5 forces, product life analysis, Porter's value chain, SWOT analysis. So these are the things that are pretty much applicable in our case. So you can refer to them and you can see how you can apply those concepts. So this is the website I would recommend that you visit and explore this website as much as possible so that you can get more information on how to apply different case study analysis tools. So This online resource on case study analysis tool would come always in handy, and keep that link secure. Now we move on to the next slide, and here's a recap of our today's session. We earlier talked about the case study preparation, and we talked about teachers' assessment and the expectations of students, that how actually to meet those assessment. And that was very important, because if you don't know how you are being assessed, then you won't be able to prepare yourself very effectively. So you must know what are the expectations of teacher, and you must know what are the things that you need to take into account, which are very important for you. And the third one is the case study and its tools. We read a case on micro broadband, and then we talk about different case study tools that would be needed to actually solve that case. With this, our second session comes to its conclusion, and we look forward to seeing you in our third session. Thank you.